Hi all, welcome back once again in my YouTube channel. So guys, I hope you all are doing good and also enjoying the video what I uploaded recently, right? So guys, in last video already I have discussed about all the most important question which is generally asked in the interview. The topic was microservices, right? In the microservices, so many important question I have already discussed. So next topic guy, which is also most important in the interview room, that is REST API. So with the REST API, so many questions asked by the interviewer in the interview room. That is also most important topic in the interview. So the guys who already preparing the interview, definitely they need to prepare also about the what REST API question. So that's why today what I'm going to discuss, so all about REST API interview question. So same like previously, already I have collected all the important question which is generally asked in the interview related to the REST API question. So guys, one by one all the question I will first dictate you and then I will explain one by one, and then we'll understand what all the question which is generally asked in the interview. So guys, this is the first question generally asked in the interview, that is how do you design and implement RESTful API using a Spring Boot? Because once you're going to implement REST API, definitely our what application developed through the Spring Boot, right? So guys, that's why I'm mentioning here RESTful API using the Spring Boot, right? So first question important. So generally this question asked mostly in the interview. So how do you design and implement a RESTful API using a Spring Boot? Then guys, second question, what are the key principles of RESTful architecture once you're going to implement RESTful API in your what project or your application? Then guys, third question, how do you handle request validation, right? Because once you get a request from the end user, then how you're going to validate with the help of some annotation, right? Along with how you are going to handle the what error and exception in a Spring Boot using REST API, right? That is also one most important question in the interview. So guys, next question, what is the role of at the rate of REST controller and at the rate of controller? This question most of the time, in 10 of 10 you can assume this question asked by the interviewer, okay? So definitely that's why also we should know the answer for this question, right? Guys, question number next, how can you document REST API in a Spring Boot? What is the documentation? Which tool by which we are going to document our REST API in the Spring Boot? So this question also we need to give the answer to respective what interviewer, right? Then guys, next question, explain the use of respective annotation, which is generally we are going to use each and every what application once you're going to expose any API, right? That time you may see, right, request mapping, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping. Generally these all types of what mapping you are going to use once you are going to expose any API as per our requirement in the what REST API implementation, right? So guys, these all six questions are very, very important. What we should know the answer what confidently to give the what interviewer. So guys, the next question, question number 7, how do you handle security and authentication for REST API? So what technique we are going to use, how we are going to handle security and authentication for REST API? That question also important if you're going to implement REST API using a Spring Boot, right? Okay, next question, what are some best practices for designing RESTful services, right? If you're going to use RESTful services, right, so how are you going to design your services, right? That what is the best practices? So I will explain once I will explain the answer for that. Okay, question number next, question number 9. So how do you test REST API in a Spring Boot? So if once you have done the implementation of REST API, so how you are going to test the application, right? Test the REST API, what you have implemented. This is also one important question generally this question asked by the interviewer. Okay, or also your knowledge purpose, right? So if you're going to implement in REST API, so how we are going to test the application, right? So guys, question number next, what is the purpose of response status code in RESTful API, right? That is also one important question. Okay, next question, differentiate between REST and SOAP API. Already if you have SOAP API, why REST needed, right? That is the one question. So guys, next question, what is the response status and exception handler in handling API error, right? That question also is very important. So we should know the answer for respective question, guys. Question number 13, what is the difference between put and patch? Generally this question may ask by the interviewer, why we are going to use put and why we are going to use a patch, what is the reason behind that? So that answer we should know, guys. Question number next, what are idempotent methods, how is it relevant in REST API? Okay, so many candidates doesn't know, because once I'm going to take the interview, once I'm asked this question, so many candidates confused what is idempotent. Head and C doesn't know the exact answer for that. So that's why I collected this question and I have kept in the list of the what REST API important question. So guys, the question number last, what is the purpose of add the rate of JSON ignore and JSON property annotation in your application in the REST implementation? That all the question guys generally asked in the interview, if you're going to give any interview. Okay, so we should know all the answer what very briefly and very confidently, so you can also what give the answer to respective interviewer very confident, right? So guys, after if all the answer I will done, I will explain all the answer. And even if you have any confusion, any doubt, okay, so please do comment in the comment section. We'll reply back to you very soon as per my time availability. Okay guys, so I will start one by one all the answer of respective question. Okay, so let's move in the first question. What is the first question, guys? So we can see here, first question is what? How do you design, right? How do you design and implement what? A RESTful API using what? A Spring Boot, right? So if you're going to use a Spring Boot, right? So with the help of a Spring Boot, if you're going to implement in REST API, so what should be the design and implement process, right? Yes or no? What should be the design and implement process to implementing any RESTful API? Guys, see, listen very carefully. So what I'm going to explain, it's very helpful to all. Okay, so guys, see, if you want to think about design and implementation, so first guy, you need to think about requirement, right? So define API requirement, by which purpose you are going to expose RESTful API, right? So first point should be guy, define API requirement. Identify what? Identify the resources and their relationship, right? Operation and the desired behavior of the respective API. So first point, you should think about the define API requirement, by which purpose you are going to what? Implement, okay, your scenario, right? That thing, the first point, right? What is the first point, guy? Define API requirement, right? So guys, after defining your requirement, so then you should create a Spring Boot application. Guys, see, these all are the points. These all are the points what we should know. Okay, if you're going to design and implement in RESTful API using a Spring Boot, so all the points you should keep in mind and step by step you need to follow. So first point is define API requirement. Okay, means what? Identify the resources and the relationship, right? Operations and the desired behavior of respective API, what you are going to implement, right? Then guys, second point, what you should keep remember, create a Spring Boot application. That is the second step, guys. Okay, so initialize a Spring Boot project with the necessary dependency for web development. You know very well, just like a Spring Boot starter web, right? like that guy. So in next point, what we should keep remember guys, design RESTful endpoint. Okay, what the endpoint you are going to expose, that is third point guy, design RESTful endpoint means what, create controller using at the rate of REST controller, and what, define endpoint using annotation like what, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, right, delete mapping. So these all are the what, our what annotation by which we are going to expose our API, right? So that means what, design RESTful endpoint. That is the third point. First is the define API requirement, second create a Spring Boot application, then third is the design RESTful endpoint, to which endpoint you need to implement your requirement. Sometimes you need get mapping, sometimes you need post mapping, sometimes put mapping, and sometimes delete mapping as well. It depends upon your requirement, right guys? So guys, after that you need to implement service layer, as you know, MVC, right, model view controller. Just like in this also, after creating your endpoint, you should create one service layer, right? Create service layer, that means what, create service classes to handle business logic and what, interact with the data layer, right? So why we are going to implement service layer guy, you know very well, right? Create service classes to handle business logic and what, interact with the data layer. So after creating your what service layer, definitely you should create what, repository layer, that is DO layer. Define repository to manage data access using what, Spring Data JPA or other persistent mechanism as per your requirement, as per your needs, right? And after that guys, configure exception handling as well. If you're going to implement any RESTful API, definitely you should have create what, exception handling mechanism as well. So use exception handler or what, control advice. You know very well. If you don't know, please do comment in the comment section. I will bring the video also. Such type of video means how you're going to handle the exception, right? So generally we are going to use at the rate of exception handler or at the rate of control advice classes to handle exception and provide meaningful error, right, and responses. After doing this what, exception handling guys, in last but not least, we need to test the REST API application, right? So test endpoint we should have, write unit and integration test to ensure your API behaves what, as expected or not. What you implemented, the implementation related to REST API, so it's the response is coming as expected or not. So that purpose you need to create what, test endpoint to testing, okay? So guys, these all are the design and implementation required implementing any RESTful API guys. So guys, that is the brief explanation of question number first. I hope you understood. If you don't understood, if you any issue, if you any doubt, any confusion, please do me a comment in comment section. I will let you know. I will what, reply back to your question. Guys, the second question, what are the key principles of RESTful architecture? That is very, very important question guys. You should know the answer. Okay. So guys, so the question is what, key principle of RESTful architecture, right? So guys, what I'm going to explain, these all points are related to the key principles only, right? So first guys, statelessness means what, each request from a client guys. Statelessness means what, each request from a client server must contain all the what, information needed to understand and process the request is stored on the server or not. That is called guys statelessness, right? Guys, second key principle, what, client server separation means what, the client and server guy, we know very well, right? The client and server are separate what, entitles that what, interact through a well-defined interface promoting modularity and what, scalability. These are the what, client server separation guy. And after that you should know uniform interface, right? That is also one what, key principle of the RESTful architecture. What is uniform interface guy? What is the meaning of uniform interface? So guys, you know very well, right? So RESTful API should have a consistent and standardized what, interface, typically using a standard HTTP method what we are going to use frequently in our implementation, just like get, post, put, delete, and a status code guide. So that is a uniform interface. Guys, next is a resource based. What resource based guide? So resource means guide, resources are identified by the URLs, can be represented in what? Various format guide, just like JSON, XML. If you're going to use SOAP, definitely you're going to use the XML based. If you're going to use what? REST, then that time you're going to generally use JSON, right? So guys, that is the best what? Key principle of the REST API, that is resource based. Okay, and last, stateless communication. Each interaction is independent and the server doesn't retain any state about the client between requests. That thing also we should know if we are going to implement RESTful architecture in our implementation guide. So these all other points is very important as a key principle. Once again I explain statelessness, client server separation, uniform interface, resource based, and stateless communication. These all are very important key principle of the RESTful architecture guide. So guys, the next question, how do you handle request validation and error handling in Spring Boot using REST API? So guys, you know very well, once you get the request from the end user, right, by the client, so how you're going to validate request validation? That's why for that purpose we know very well, right? So what annotation is there, right? At the rate of not null. Whatever your request sending to the whatever request you are getting from the what end user, so first we are going to check what it should not be null, right? Then you're going to check what is the size of that, and you can use at the rate of valid, at the rate of validated, right, on the controller method, right? The all annotation generally you are going to use controller method, right, and parameters to trigger validation, right? So guys, this is the request validation. A part of that, if you're going to handle the error, so how are you going to handle the error guide? So validation error, right guide? So if you're going to handle the error, that means you need to handle the error with the help of guide annotation. That annotation is guide at the rate of exception handler to handle method argument not valid exception and customize the response as well guide, right? If you're going to handle the error, that means you need to use at the rate of exception handler to handle the error guide. A part of that also you can handle custom exception, right? So define custom exception classes and handle them using at the rate of exception handler or at the rate of controller advice to provide meaningful error in the messages. Guys, if you don't have such type of information about error handling, please do comment. I will bring such type of video as well, because how you going to handle global exception in our REST implementation, right? I will explain in coming video if you will do comment. As of now, this is sufficient to understand how you're going to handle the error and how you're going to validate the request. Okay. So guys, the next question, what is the role of at the rate of REST controller and at the rate of controller in Spring Boot using REST API? Guys, this question is very important. So generally also I'm asking this question to so many candidates, and most of the candidate is able to give the answer. And suppose if you don't know the answer, I will explain here. Please be concentrated, please be focused to listen the answer for this question. So guys, so at the rate of REST controller means guys, so REST controller annotation means guys combines at the rate of controller and at the rate of response body. So at the rate of REST controller means what? We are going to combine at the rate of controller annotation and at the rate of response body. It is used to create RESTful web services guide, where the response body is directly written to the HTTP response, typically JSON or XML format guide. It eliminates the need to annotate each method with response body. Once again, I will explain. What is the at the rate of REST controller? Means guys, at the rate of REST controller combines two annotation. That first annotation is at the rate of controller and at the rate of response body. It is used to create RESTful web services where the response body is directly written to the HTTP response, typically JSON or XML format. It eliminates the need to annotate. What? It eliminates the need to annotate each method with at the rate of response body. That is guys at the rate of REST controller annotation. Guys, you know what is the at the rate of controller? So guys, at the rate of controller used for traditional MVC controllers when the response is usually rendered by a view, example JSP and theme it returns views and modal data rather than JSON or XML. In the REST controller, directly we are going to return response as the JSON or XML, but in controller we are not doing such a thing. We are going to rendered by view, just like JSP and theme. I hope you understood, guys. So guys, this is the very important question in the interview room. What is the difference between REST controller and controller? Okay, next question. How can you document REST API in a Spring Boot? So guys, we have so many type of tools are there. We have so many different types of document tool by which we are going to what? Create a document. So you know guys, a Spring Fox Swagger. Integrate a Spring Fox Swagger. A Spring Fox Swagger guys, UI to generate what? Interactive API documentation. Yes. And guys, second thing, a Spring Doc, which is Open API guys. Use the Spring Doc Open API UI to generate Open API documentation and provide a Swagger UI interface for exposing respective API. Guys, third, Open API specification. Define API endpoint and data models using Open API annotation for comprehensive documentation. So guys, these all are the tools by which we are going to create our document for REST API guys. That is the all things guys about documentation purpose guys. Guys, question number 6. Explain the use of different type of annotation in our REST API guys. So guys, I am explaining first what is the request mapping at the rate of request mapping, what it does in our implementation. So guys, see, at the rate of request mapping is a versatile annotation that maps HTTP requests to handle method guys. What? This annotation that maps HTTP requests to handler methods, it can be used to specify the HTTP method URL pattern guy and other attributes. It is often used at the class level guy to define a common base URL. I hope you understood. Might be you so many guys you know all this answer very well. The guys who doesn't know, so for that purpose I'm explaining this what request mapping. Right? So guys, next is get mapping guy. So you know very well, right? So get mapping is what? So once you're going to retrieve any data, right, in resources from the database or anywhere, right? So you're going to get mapping. Get mapping guy is shortcut of the request mapping, right? Once you're going to the request mapping, inside the bracket you can also use method equal to what? Request method dot get, right? It maps HTTP get request to a method typically used to for retrieving resources, right? Already I mentioned you. If you want to retrieve the resources, that time frequently we can use at the rate of get mapping. Right guys? Guys, next at the rate of post mapping. So guys, a shortcut for post mapping you know very well, right? So at the rate of request mapping inside bracket you can also use method equal to request method dot post, right? That is shortcut. Also you can guys, it maps what it does guys, what post mapping it does. So it maps HTTP post request to a method. Usually it is used to creating a new resource, right? Usually it's create what? It is used to create new resources. By which? By post mapping guy. Guy, next put mapping. Put mapping guy, same. If you're going to use shortcut, so under the request mapping, at the rate of request mapping inside the bracket you can use method equal to request method dot put as well. So what it does guy? So put mapping, so it maps HTTP put request to a method. Generally it is used for updating the resource. What? It is updating the resource. I will explain in later question what is the difference between put and patch. Then I will also explain what exactly the thing is that. Okay. So generally put mapping what? Used to update the resources. Okay. Next, what is at the rate of delete mapping? So guys, delete mapping means it maps HTTP delete request to method typically used for deleting the resources. You got it, guys, right? It used to delete the resources, guys. So guys, these all are the our annotation. Generally we are going to use once we need expose any API as per our requirement. Okay, that is the question number 6. Now I will jump in question number 7, guys. The question is, how do you handle security and authentication for REST API? What, guys? So question is 7, right? So what do you handle security and authentication or REST API, right? So guys, it's a very important question also in the interview room. So guys, for that purpose we should know. So guys, security means what? Spring security, right? So guys, if you're going to use security in REST API, that means configure security setting using @ enable web security, right? So guys, the guys who are seeing this time first time my video, so please go my Spring security video, you may see, right? So how we are going to handle security in our Spring Boot. So guys, if you are going to use security in Spring Boot, that means configure security setting using @ enable web security and extend web security configure adapter and implement authentication using what? Auth2, JWT or basic authentication, by which we are going to secure your REST API as well. Okay, next, so with the help of JWT, JSON Web Token, right? Use JWT for stateless authentication by generating and validating tokens, guys. So these are the techniques, guys. And with the help of auth2, use auth2 for delegate authorization with third-party identity providers, guys. And guys, last, the way Spring security filter, implement custom filter to handle authentication and authorization. With this technique also you can what? Handle security and authentication in your REST API implementation, guys. So guys, the question number 8. What are some best practice for designing RESTful services? Good, guys. So guys, what I'm going to explain, please listen carefully. So guys, these all are the best practices. I will explain one by one. Guys, first, use proper HTTP method. If you are going to what? Create any RESTful API, so first you need to know the proper HTTP method. Align HTTP method with CUR operation, guys. That means what? You should have get, post, put, delete, right? Means read, write, update and delete. Such type of proper HTTP method you should know, right? Guys, second thing, design resource oriented URI, right? So if you're going to design in RESTful web services, so you should know also design resource oriented URI. Use clear non-based URI that represent resources, guys. Then next, use consistent naming convention. If you're going to design RESTful web services, then also you should know what? Consistent naming convention means follow consistent naming for the what? Endpoint and data formats, guys. Then guys, next point, provide clear and meaningful response. Use appropriate HTTP status, guys, code and provide informative error message as well if you are going to design perfect RESTful web services. So guys, these all are the points what I'm going to explain. It's very important, guys. And guys, implement pagination and filtering. Support pagination and filtering for the what? Large data sets, right? Guys, next point is secure your API. Implement proper authentication and authorization mechanism while you're going to what? Design perfect RESTful services. So guys, next point is document your API. So provide comprehensive documentation for developers, right? Using tools like Swagger or OpenAPI. With the help of Swagger and OpenAPI, you can create perfect document for your RESTful web services. Guys, last, use Hatios, right? So guys, include hypermedia links to guide clients through available actions. That is the use that with the help of what? Hatios, right? Guys, these all are the points by which you can design what? Perfect RESTful services. Once again, I am repeat all the what key factors, guys. So use proper HTTP methods. First, design resource oriented URI. Second, third is the use consistent naming convention. Provide clear and meaningful response. Implement pagination and filtering. Secure API. Create a document for API. Use Hetios. These all are the points which is very important to design any RESTful web services. Guys, the question number 9. How do you test REST API in a Spring Boot? Okay, so guys, it's very common things with the help of Postman, you know, right? So Postman is a testing tool, testing API tool, right? So if anybody asks you what is Postman, why you use the Postman, that means it is a what? API testing tool, right? So REST is a API, right? So once you're going to expose any API, just like get, post, put, delete. So it's working expected or not as per our requirement, we are going to test with the help of Postman, right? Yes or no, guys? With the help of Postman, we are going to what? Test our application. Correct, guys? And after, guys, you can test REST assured. Use REST assured for more advanced testing of REST endpoint, guys. Then JUnit, write test cases with JUnit to verify behavior and responses. Then, guys, test container. Use test container to run integration tests against what? Real database or services. So guys, these all are the what? Testing tool by which we can test our REST API. So guys, the next question is what? What is the purpose of response status, right? Codes in RESTful API, right? Response status, guys, we have couples of response status code, what we know, right? So guys, see, once you're going to test any application, right, with the help of Postman, you can see different status code is there, right? Different types of status code is there, means response status code is there. So guys, first code is suppose 200. If you get expected result after hitting the endpoint in the Postman, you can get 200. That means success response, guys. If you get 201, that means resource created. If you are getting 3 right? So not modified. If you are getting the 400, bad request. If you are going to 401, not authorized. If you are going to get 404, not found. If you are going to take, if you are going to see 500, that means internal server error, guys. If you are going to see 502, bad gateway. So guys, these all are the what? Status code. As per implementation, you need to know which all are the status code in our REST API. So guys, this is very important. Means once again I will explain you. 200 means okay, means request successful, right? 201 means what? Created. Request successful and resource created. If you get 400, guys, bad request means what? Request unsuccessful due to user error, guys. Yes or no? 401 unauthorized, right? 403 forbidden. 404 not found. 500 internal server error. 502 bad gateway. 503 service unavailable. So guys, these all are the what? Status code of in REST API. So guys, the next question, difference between REST and SOAP API. If already we have SOAP, why we need REST, right? This is very important question, guys. So most of the interview they may ask, do you know SOAP API? If you're going to implement REST API. So guys, that also we should know what is the exact difference between SOAP and REST, guys. So guys, see, first, what is REST? REST means what? Representational state transfer, right? Yes or no? If anybody asks you what is REST, so first we should know what it stands for. What it stands for means what? RST means what? Representational state transfer. SOAP means, guys, simple object access protocol. Simple what? Object access protocol. Right? So guys, then second difference, what? What is it? What is it? Means what is REST? So REST is an, guys, architecture. What? REST is an architecture style for the designing communication interfaces. But what is SOAP, guys? SOAP is a protocol for communication between application. That thing also we should know. So guys, then as per design basis, so REST API expose the data, guys. What? REST API expose the data, but SOAP API expose the operation. Keep in mind, guys. So what I'm going to explain is very, very important. So REST API expose the data, but SOAP API expose the operation. Guys, REST works only with the HTTP call. What? REST works only with the HTTP calls, but SOAP is what? Interdependent and what? Can work with any transport protocol. SOAP is interdependent. SOAP is independent and can work with any transport protocol, guys. Right? So, guys, the data format for REST, guys. So REST supports what? XML and JSON, plain text, HTML. Means any type of data format what? Used by the REST. But SOAP supports only XML data exchange, guys. That is very, very important. SOAP supports only XML data exchange, but REST supports XML, JSON, plain text, HTML. Means any type of format we can use under the REST. Guys, performance wise, REST has faster performance due to a smaller message and caching support. Means cache support by the REST, but SOAP support only XML data exchange, and also it didn't too much fast. Means performance will also degrade. Guys, scalability. REST is easy to scale. It's stateless, so every message proceed or processed independently of previous message. But guys, in SOAP it's difficult to scale. The server maintains a state by storing all various messages, guys, exchange with a client. Guys, so security wise, guys, REST support encryption without affecting performance. What, guys? REST supports encryption without affecting the performance, but SOAP supports encryption with additional overhead, guys. Excuse me. That is the difference, guys. The last difference, as per the use case, REST is useful in modern application and public API. What, guys? As per the use case, REST is useful in modern application and public API, but just reverse, SOAP is useful in legacy application and private API, guys. That all the points, guys, very, very important. We should know, and we can reply to the interviewer if they may ask such type of question in the interview room. If you will tell to the answer very confidently, then definitely he and she will come to know you are what? Perfect. You have perfect idea about the REST and SOAP. Guys, next question. What is the @ of response status and what @ of exception handler in handling error, guys? Guys, this question number what? 12. So guys, see, in simple term, in layman term, @ of is response status used to set the HTTP status code for response, right? It can be applied to methods or exception to indicate the status code for the response, correct? And guys, @ of exception handler means what? It is used within @ of control advice or control class, right? If you're going to use @ of exception handler means what? It is used within @ of control advice or control classes to handle a specific exception. What? Which is handle to a specific exception and provide custom error response as well. That is the main work of the exception handler. Guys, next question. What is the difference between put and patch? Already I mentioned in earlier question, right? Initial question. So I will explain difference between put and patch, guys. That is, guys, common question. Okay. So interview may ask, or also your knowledge sake, you should know the answer. What is the difference between put and patch? Guys, see, the main difference between put and patch is how they modify resources, guys. How they modify the resources. So guys, see, if you're going to use put mapping, right, or put means what? Replace the entire resources with a new representational by sending all the resources fields in the request body, guys. What I have told, once again listen. So if you're going to use the put mapping, right, so replaces an entire resources with a new representational by sending all the resources fields in the request body, right? But in patch, guy, apply partial update. We are not going to update what? Entire resources. Partial update. So simple, you can tell if you're going to update entire resources, we can use the put mapping. If you're going to partial update, that time we're going to use patch. So means what? Patch applies partial update to a resource by sending only the field that need to be changed or update in the request body. Right? That is the patch, guys. But also, guys, we know that. So it's the simple thing about so put and patch, right? So guys, in next question, what are idempotent methods? How is it relevant in RESTful API? Right? This is also important question, guys. So many candidates may confuse while attending the interview when they ask when the interview asks this question, right? What are idempotent methods, right? So let's see in REST API, right? So an idempotent method is a what? HTTP method. First you need to know. So idempotent method means HTTP method, right? That produces the what? Same result when executed multiple times as it does it what? As it does when executed once. This is because, guys, only the first request cause a change and subsequent requests have no effect, guys. Also, in other words, also we can say with the example, right? See, idempotent methods includes what the methods include the idempotent method, guys: head, get, trace, and option. These methods are primarily used to retrieve information or a what? Resource representation, and they never change the resource state on the server, guy. The post method, guy, you should know the post method is not idempotent because it creates a new resource, right? Post means what? Once you need create new resources, new resource, that time you're going to create what? Post method, right? Post mapping, right? So that's why, guys, we can say the post method is not idempotent because it creates a new resources on the server each time it is executed. So guys, what have we understood? So get, head, put, delete, option, and trace are idempotent methods, meaning they are safe to be retried or executed multiple times without causing what? Unintended side effect, guys. So guys, we can say post and patch are generally considered non-idempotent as their what? Outcomes may vary with each request. Right, guys? So guys, that is the idempotent method and how it is work in the REST API. So guys, the last but not least, so what is the purpose of @JSON ignore and @JSON property annotation? So guys, see, we can see in project so many places @JSON ignore and @JSON property, but we don't know what is the actual meaning for that, right? So guys, we should know. So the @JSON ignore annotation, guys, it is used to mark a field or method in a Java class that should not be ignored during the JSON. It can't be, guys, ignored. What is meaning by, guys? The JSON means what? What I've told you, guys. So the JSON ignore means what? The JSON ignore annotation is used to mark what? A field or method in a Java classes that should not be ignored during the JSON. Why? Because serialization and deserialization process. Right? We cannot ignore because we can't come into the serialization and deserialization process. But guys, @JSON property annotation. So the @JSON property annotation used to specify the name of the JSON, right? Property that should be used to map a field or method in a Java class during the JSON serialization or deserialization process. Got it, guys? Once again, I will explain what is the JSON property. So, guys, @JSON property annotation is used to specify the name of the JSON property, guys, that should be used to map a field or method in a Java class during the JSON serialization and deserialization. Correct? But @JSON ignore, what it does? The @JSON ignore annotation is used to mark a field or method in a Java class that should not be ignored during the JSON serialization and deserialization. If you are going to keep at the rate of JSON ignored means we can't ignore during the selection and deletion. Same thing, you also work the JSON property. Also what it used during the JSON selection and deletion. So guys, these two annotation generally we are going to use in our REST API implementation. So guys, that's it. All the questions what I explained generally asked in the interview room, mostly by the interviewer. So guys, if you have any confusion, any doubt, anything, please do comment in comment section. Once I will get some time, definitely I will reply back your query. Thank you guys. So if you like this video guys, please like, share, subscribe, okay, which will boost my motivation. So I will bring different types of video as well, which is mostly asked in the interview. So guys, this question not belongs to only interview, for knowledge sake also. If you are a developer, definitely you should know all the respective answer for respective topic guys. Also this is my motto, so you should know all the answer. This is helpful for your knowledge. Thank you guys, bye bye, take care, we'll meet very soon in next video.